President Biden has reopened a Trump-era detention center. What does this say about how his administration will handle immigration policy? I'm Dometi Pongo, and this is MTV News Need to Know. The Biden administration has reopened a Trump-era detention center in response to an uptick in unaccompanied minors entering the U.S. Last week alone, 2,000 migrant children were taken into custody. And in scrambling to make room for this influx, a detention center in Carrizo Springs, Texas, opened its doors for the first time since shutting down in 2019. And the Biden administration is expected to reopen a for-profit detention center in Homestead, Florida, that once held up to 3,200 children. Why was it closed in the first place? Well, the Florida facility was shuttered in 2019 over reports of sexual abuse, overcrowding, and negligence. Immigration advocates say that the Carrizo Springs facility is run much like a prison, and HHS predicts that kids will be kept in this facility up to 30 days, even though there's a 20-day legal limit to holding minors. The COVID-19 crisis has made this even more complicated. Federal shelters had to cut their capacity in half. With government-run centers full, the privately operated Carrizo Springs was reopened to handle the overflow. It is unlicensed, not run by the state, and on top of that, it's so remote that oversight is nearly impossible. As University of Denver law professor Cesar Cuauhtemoc Garcia Hernandez told Vox, external oversight is really important when it comes to any kind of facility in which people are forcibly confined. That need for external oversight is only increased when we're talking about children. Now, we're coming on the heels of an administration that forcibly separated 506 migrant children from their parents, among other humanitarian atrocities, like holding kids in cages. The new president condemned this behavior and ran on the promise of a fair and humane immigration overhaul.
And now they cannot find over 500 sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
So it's even more concerning that he's reinvesting in problematic detention centers rather than changing how we deal with unaccompanied minors. Most unaccompanied minors are fleeing from violence and extreme poverty and have family members or guardians in the U.S. that can house them. But the bureaucratic nature of our immigration system gets these kids embroiled in detention centers that are expensive for the country and inhumane for the kids. So what do solutions look like? Former HUD Secretary Julian Castro went on CNN and acknowledged the challenges of the situation, while also suggesting that resources go towards putting kids in their host homes instead of these facilities.
I would invest in personnel and in policy to find those unaccompanied minors their host family as quickly as possible. You can improve the accommodations. They don't have to be these types of facilities that are in the middle of nowhere, that are unlicensed, that I think are probably scary for a lot of these kids to have to live in. But secondly, you can make sure that HHS has the resources to find those families much quicker so they don't have to stay anywhere near 30 days.
Biden introduced a task force responsible for reuniting families separated at the border. It has found the parents of 105 children so far. And Biden says that this detention facility would only be open temporarily. But for many Democratic voters and immigration advocates, this sounds like lip service. Like the Biden administration is stalling for time without seeking meaningful, lasting solutions. Some, like former Labor Secretary Robert Reich, believe this is a recurring weakness of the Democratic Party, dragging their feet instead of passing sweeping legislation while they have the votes. Dems have had the presidency and both houses of Congress in just 4 of the past 28 years. So raise the minimum wage, pass a Green New Deal, protect voting rights, provide universal health care, tax the rich, and get big money out of politics. Now, there is no time to waste. This is why so many people are frustrated with the democratic process. They vote for bold legislation championed during the campaign season, but rarely see it come to fruition. Now, there's this fear that if Biden is reopening the same facilities that Trump did, he's supporting the exact same inhumane policies, just repackaged with a kinder facade. For better or for worse, Trump's overt support for inhumane policies energized voters to demand accountability. Voters want lawmakers to keep the same energy they had on the campaign trail. And it's going to be hard for the Democratic Party to survive if they refuse to boldly stand for the issues they ran on. I'm Dometi Pongo, and that's what you need to know.